So, Dr. Polasek, in teaching composition, do you prefer to use nonfiction or fiction, including short stories, drama, and poetry, or a combination of nonfiction and fiction?
My preference is really for fiction rather than nonfiction. Now, I understand that primarily what the students are being trained to do is to produce nonfiction themselves. That is, they're doing essay writing, which is going to be what's practical in their lives. However, I don't feel that the point of using writing to aid in teaching writing is necessarily to provide something for them to replicate, which I think is the sort of perhaps the primary reason you might choose to use nonfiction is, okay, so this is what a well-constructed argument looks like. See if we can pick it apart and understand how it works, and then you try to do that. There's a place for that, and I have colleagues who tend to prefer to do that. My preference for using fiction has a lot to do with how I view the sort of broader purpose of communication, which is to say that what we encounter in the world in our daily lives is a lot of information coming at us constantly. And our job as communicators, as rhetoricians, as writers, as speakers, starts with understanding how to deconstruct the information, the stories that come at us. And as Salman Rushdie once said, everything is a story, family is a story, community is a story, your job is a story, your life is a story. And so all these stories are coming at us constantly. And we have to try to pick them apart and understand what's important and how we can construct meaning from those stories. And then from there, we can work on trying to present that meaning in a coherent way to other people. And I think that using fiction is the best way to replicate that process, because fiction is inherently complex. It provides a wonderful sandbox, really, for the students to jump into and to try to generate first their ideas, try to unpack the meaning, and then they can go about trying to reconstruct some sort of an argument, work on organization, structure from there. But I think that the skill that is often lacking in composition classes is the first step, which is trying to understand something in order to have something to say about it. Otherwise, you can write a really coherently structured essay with a great thesis statement that doesn't say anything of any import. So I think fiction accomplishes that better than nonfiction does.
Do you think that using nonfiction is important because students will be more likely to encounter nonfiction in their daily lives and in their working lives later on, and write nonfiction in their working lives and in their broader life experience later on?
I think that the idea that we encounter nonfiction more than we encounter fiction is itself not true. Because every narrative that we encounter in life is a narrative. Everything is constructed in some way. And now more than ever, it is important, I think, to train students to recognize that just because something is being presented as the truth and being presented as a fact, that doesn't mean that it isn't a little bit more complicated than that, and that they need to learn to address the information that's presented to them in what they may perceive as an unbiased manner actually is something that needs to be unpacked. Everything they're presented with needs to be unpacked. So saying that they are more likely to encounter nonfiction, I don't think that's true. I just don't think that's true. Even the news is not nonfiction anymore.
Is there also an argument for teaching fiction in a composition course to allow a student to be able to engage with important cultural artifacts, important poetry and short stories by major writers?
Not as much in composition, to my mind. I certainly think that all of the, I believe in a very broad liberal education. I really think that everybody who earns even a 2-year degree should be required to take literature courses. I think that the humanities are absolutely essential to our whole cultural health. But when the focus is on composition, then the way that I present the fiction that I teach there has a great deal less to do with let's figure out how we can explicate the text and come to the grips with these themes and stuff. The reason we want to do that is, as I say, because it's part of the process of unpacking information that's presented to you and assessing the information and then forming a coherent argument about the information and then utilizing parts of that information to support an analysis. So what that analysis actually is and how vital it is that the short stories or the poetry or the plays that they encounter are culturally significant, that's less important to me in a composition class.
Thank you, Dr. Polasek.
My pleasure.